One of my favorite things is to go through dating profiles and just critique them. And the ones I see are so bad. I mean, the pictures are awful. The descriptions are awful. The messages are bad. And I tend to think that it takes so little effort just to be like a step above average. Like, and that's just a little bit of effort. And if you actually put time into yourself and get better at these things, it should be easy. I feel like it's easier than ever.
I think it depends in part on what you're looking for and what your expectations are, obviously. I think somebody that is looking for, let's just say, more of what you might call a traditional marriage, they feel like it's more difficult right now. And I think they attribute a lot of that to kind of like what third wave feminism tells women they should think about marriage and society and men and whatnot. So I think if you are looking for something that might be more traditional like that, I think it's probably more difficult. I mean, I don't, do you guys ever watch the show Home Math?
No.
Oh,
wait, those are the shots.
Yes.
You've seen Home Math?
Oh yeah.
He's the guy that's like,
he does the graphs.
Yeah,
he does the graphs. It's awesome.
Shout out Home Math.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
You know,
wow.
You know who thinks that channel is just really interesting?
Oh.
My wife.
Really?
We will sit down there and watch that together because we'll sit there and he'll explain this is how women see things, this is how men see things and whatnot. And so we'll do a lot of like, is that true? Is that true? You know, and she's like, he's like pretty spot on, right? And what's so nice about it is the visual depiction, right? It's something
he's
that's
a
easy.
great artist
oh my
too.
gosh,
like a really intricate drawing.
He has such a great way of, I think, putting things into terms, and then that visualization that goes with it really allows it to stick. And I admire
the flow
that
charts are incredible. Like if this, then that, and if that, then this, and
yeah. And the thing is, he could say the entire thing, but without the flow chart, it just doesn't hit the same. And so he does a good job of explaining how, because of the way that men and women kind of biologically think about these things, combined with things like social media, combined with things like the dopamine hits you were talking about, combined with things like third wave feminism, combined with things like a more hedonistic culture, what it means is that, 80% of the women are sleeping with 30 to 20% of the guys, high performers, the whole deal. And then you have a large part, when you talk about above average, right? When you have a large part of the male population that isn't, blue eyes, 6 foot, finance, right? Like that whole thing, they feel like they're being basically spurned. Well, at the same time, now you could say, well, okay, then do things to improve yourself. In fact, that's what Home Math says. He goes, you can go from a 3 to a 7 to an 8 with not a huge amount of effort. I think the other thing that keeps guys from doing those things is, one, I think we have a culture on the other side. I think we have a male culture that says, I'm so pissed about what's going on. Screw them. They don't deserve it. At the same time that I think porn is horrible. I think porn is just corrosive intellectually and emotionally. And we know it has negative effects intellectually. We know it has negative effects with respect to the brain and dopamine hits and things like that. It's even worse on another level. I had a friend of mine on, his name's Josh, and he used to be, award-winning porn star for like 6 years, and was on the verge of suicide. And he talks about all the friends he's had within that industry that have killed themselves. But all that to say that, you mentioned before, what happens when it's easier than ever in order to get, if you can't get the thing you really want, you can get something, you can get proximity. And porn, I think, ends up being proximity. And so the problem is that what happens when you have a lot of guys that feel like they're competing at a disadvantage in a society or in a culture that is increasingly against them. And there are plenty of distractions that will at least provide a diversion, right? Video games, porn, stuff like that. Like, I don't have anything about video games in general, right? But porn I do. But I think when you combine all those things, that creates a problem. Now, to your point, you can make a choice not to do that. You can make a choice to work hard and improve yourself in these other areas. And ultimately, the thing that I look, good news, bad news, right? Bad news is, guys, this is a problem, right? And I understand this is not ideal. Good news is you can do something about it. Bad news, again, is the only way it's ever going to change is if you do something about it. I don't think the reason why so much of culture now has intensified on this idea that, again, men are the problem and you don't deserve a special place in society and everything. They're telling you that not because it's true, but because they know it isn't. I don't care what any faddish political or sociological ideology comes up with. Men in general, and in many ways, young men specifically are absolutely essential to a healthy society. When young men want to play their proper role within a society, societies flourish. And when they don't, things get bad really, really quickly. So again, bad news, yep, it's happening. Good news, you can do something about it. And bad news is you're going to have to if you actually want to improve the situation.
What do you think about intellectual compatibility? Do partners need to be somewhere around the same range of, I guess, IQ?
This is interesting because there's been a lot of research on this on how relationships used to develop versus how they do now, right? And then you had, I think I can't remember the name now. It might have been Losing Ground. I can't remember the author of the book, but he was talking about how once upon a time, I'm going to use Homath. Homath is an example. Homath says, he goes, what does a guy look for? We look for looks, personality, and then there's a couple other things that like can really push you over the edge for us on something we really like. And then women have all these other criteria. It used to be that I think the IQ differential between men and women didn't matter as much within relationships. Now that we have a much larger population that have gone to college and the female population of the college is actually higher than the male population, you've seen an increase in the IQ component factoring into marriage. I don't think it's something where I don't think it's something where it has to be a thing where they're even. I think you have to be compatible with respect to what your expectations are with marriage. That's why I say the values are the most important component, and then the expectations, and then interest is like third or fourth down the road, because a lot of times the intellectual capacity will show up in the interests. I do think it's important that you have something you can actually have a conversation with. So I don't think there can be such a deficit that you just got nothing to talk about. But I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you on how important a factor I think that is. I can tell you that one of the things that first attracted me to, the first thing that attracted me to my wife is she walked in the classroom. We were high school sweethearts, right? And I was like, holy crap, that's never going to happen, right? But there was other pretty girls, right? So what attracted me to her? Well, two things that attracted me to her is she wanted to discuss like important topics. Like she wanted to debate and get into the meat of things and go back and forth and contend. And I found that really attractive. So I think part of it is based off of what you enjoy. If you enjoy intellectual pursuits, you're probably gonna need to find someone that also has at least some degree of interest in a similar field.
I think it's probably the fair answer is if that matters to you, if it's a value of yours, then you probably should find someone like that. Yeah. What do you think about women who financially support their men? Do you think that is a recipe for success or disaster?
I think it can work. I think it can work. For instance, I met a couple not that long ago. She was a doctor. He was an FBI agent. They were not happy with what was going on in their kids' school. And so they had the conversations like, okay, we want to pull kids out. We want to do, this homeschooling. We want to do these other things. And he was like, you're a doctor. He was, and you've worked very hard on this. You got your practice going, everything else. He goes, it would probably be easier for me to fulfill that role. And I think I think they've made this decision in a way that is mutually respectful and works for the arrangement they have. So I don't think it has to be one way or the other. I think typically it's important for the man to provide. But again, that's something this is one of the reasons why before you get married, discussing expectations is hugely important. My wife and I, at 18 and 19 at the time when we were dating, I'm like, what do you expect out of me, like financially? I said, because I expect to be the primary breadwinner. I expect that role for myself. I don't have a problem with you working, but I take on that responsibility as the primary responsibility for me. And her statement was, I would like to work. I'd like to have professional pursuits. She goes, but when we start having kids, I don't want our lifestyle to be dependent on two incomes. I want to have that option at that point. I said, I completely agree. I said, expectation back. What that means is we can't get used to a two-income lifestyle. Because when your income goes away, the expectation cannot mean, okay, I'm going to stay at home with the kids now, but we still have to maintain X, Y, and Z. And she's like, no, absolutely, totally fair. So that whole back and forth right there would be really, really easy for people to assume that you're all on the same page. No, talk all that out on that expectation. So I would say that typically, I think that most of the relationships I see are if there's one person that is providing, they usually are happier. with the man in that position, but it doesn't have to be. I don't think it's a moral imperative.